Folks, hello and welcome to the Naren Agarwal Show. Today is going to be a very happy episode. The reason being, I have two very happy individuals with me, Surabhi and Vikram. They are the founders of Happy Jars Nut Butters, an e-commerce launched company in India. And I just want to delve deep into the e-commerce business, their experience of being a married couple and entrepreneurs and business partners at the same time. It's just going to be an amazing conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, hello guys. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
All well.
You seem happy, and so do I. So
Happy as you can be after a whole day of work.
I know. When we were talking off air, you said it's a pretty busy day of work for you today. Having said that, I want to quickly ask you, what are
Yeah.
nut butters? It's a growing concept in India. Would you just like to dig deep and tell us about nut butters? All about nut butters. Tell us about it. What's the business? What is Happy Jars?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So nut butters are essentially a high protein spread. They are made mainly with nuts. So we make peanut butter, almond butter, and cashew butter. They're high protein because the nuts themselves are very rich and nutritious as food. And Happy jars, what you get is cleaner ingredients. So we don't actually add any oils. We don't add any preservatives. We try and stay away as far as possible. So we add jaggery. So you're getting natural, clean ingredients in food that is actually nutritiously dense and it's good for you. So a breakfast with nut butters will keep you full until lunch. And it's used very often for breakfast foods. It's used for snack times. And we've just recently launched dark chocolate flavors. The intention of that is to try and get a healthier version of an indulgent chocolate taste as well. So yeah, I think it's like you said, it's a and they're really actually they're underestimated as a food category, but it's really catching on with people who are in fitness and health, etc.
Correct. I mean, to be honest, I'm personally a big fan of nut butters because I used to be much heavier, and I went through a journey of changing my food style, and went through ketosis in some way, and I used actually your product, the almond butter, the unsweetened one, and over the journey, I've been able to lose about 27 kilograms of weight. I've
Wow.
lost about 27 kilograms of weight,
That's awesome.
and nut butters have been a big, category of food for me, especially like your product. Guys, they're not paying me for this. I genuinely just use their product. Um,
We might now.
oh well, I'll be happy to receive any kind of check you're trying to issue me. But, but basically, like these were one food categories that really worked for me. Like that were healthy, like you said, nutritiously dense. It is underestimated. Why do you think so? Why do you think they're underestimated? Is it just that people in the past have never made butters out of nuts, especially in India, or why do you think they're underestimated?
I think it's also to do with the fact that we tend to eat a hot and spicy breakfast. So our food is actually quite different. It's not always toasts and bread. And the reason that nut butters came about and the way that they've been used historically is on a piece of toast. So if you're not eating the toast, it doesn't really feature as one of the main ingredients on your table. So I think that's where it's perhaps usage in India has been lower. But we've also now come up with, sorry, I'm just doing plugs because
Yeah.
the stories are in my head. But we came up with a chili chutney actually for exactly that reason, because we want to be able to add peanut butter to more food. So if you're having like a poha or a dosa, how do you get your protein in, right? So that's been one of the things we're trying to actually as a brand maybe lead from a category perspective on that to make it more
Amazing.
discoverable and acceptable.
That's amazing. So here's my question. You could like you focus on keeping the ingredients very clean and cutting out all the added like hydrogenated oils, all these things in your product. To be very honest, that could lower a lot of costs and maybe have a bigger market for you because the price of the products become cheaper. Why have you chosen this strategy over going for a more mass market approach for nut butters?
So I'll take that. Now, the way we started the business and what we thought of was very different. Right from the get-go, we just did not want to use preservatives, and there was a lot. There were a lot of brands in the market which were doing nut butters with preservatives, and the intention of me and both of us starting the business was to have a clean business, in the sense that the product needs to be healthy and tasty. And with health, there's a lot of compromise that people do. I think a lot of people use whey protein just to increase the content of protein, but we decided to sway away from that. So we kept it natural intentionally, because what you eat, how much you eat, is what matters, and the ingredients need to be the highlight of the product. So that was the focus. And then we started looking at, costing. How does it fit in? We didn't really start from the cost. Okay, well, how do we make the cheapest product and keep it healthy? We started with the fact that the product needs to be 100% nutritious and tasty, and then we will work on the cost and how we can make it a business.
That's amazing. I love that approach. When you talk about, starting with the cost and starting with the value, you started with the value proposition first and then made the back end work, rather than starting with, oh, I'm getting this cheap. And then, we can just sell a bunch of it. I love that. That leads me to the question. Okay. I want to learn about your journey, because I know both of you have been somebody who had jobs, and then you decided to quit your job, and then start a business together. It's not like, one person quit their job and started the business. Both of you quit your job and started a business, a startup venture, which is not an easy decision, when you have money flowing in and then you stop, both of you, and then start a business. What was that like? What were you guys doing individually before that? And what motivated you to go into this and take a risk? Starting a business is a risk.
So we both come from a marketing and digital plus mainline advertising background, but we both specialized in marketing, and that's how we met actually, in Strathclyde in Glasgow. Uh, Marketing is the core of what we've done throughout our career. We've worked with multiple brands, advising them on digital strategy, outdoor campaigns, and basically getting their word out. But there was a time when I wanted to do something different, and food was definitely a part of that. And I'm a big foodie. We both are big foodies. We love food, tasty food, and then we keep experimenting. So food was just something that was going to happen at some point in time. But for the longest time, we didn't really, Surabhi didn't get into the business originally. I ran it for 2 years, and then we were on pilot for almost 1 year. Just doing a lot of events, getting the product in front of consumers, and then really getting a lot of feedback from them. So that was one part of it.
Yeah. When we were, so Vikram actually started, or the idea, if I'm going to delve into that, though you haven't specifically asked it, but the idea kind of came about because Vikram was really passionate about horse riding, and still is. So he's a national champion. He loves to be very modest about it. Yeah, it's crazy. You see him on a horse and you're like, oh my God, I see this in the Olympics. I don't know how I'm married to this man. So that's how my life changed when I met him, because I was suddenly introduced to this very fancy equestrian world. And so protein and peanuts, and this entire peanut butter, of course, for him was something that he's been eating from boarding school. And protein was important because he was a rider. So when he decided to start this business, it was something that he was doing off the back of a startup which was in horse riding. He was actually working with another startup, and then he decided to leave that one and start this. It was a passion project, more like, because he decided to start his own recipes. So right in the beginning, I don't think we were both sure that it was going to end up becoming a business. We just decided that he's going to do something and I'm going to stick with my job and see how it pans out. So that was for, I think, the first 6 months. I think we were both very unsure, and then about 6 months later he was very sure that it's going to become something and he's going to try and make it something. But at that time we were still like, we need some salary, we need to be a little sensible about it. So I kind of stuck with the job, and he ran Happy Jars for the first 2 years pretty much by himself. So that was the first.
With a lot of help, though. You definitely wanted to be involved.
Goading on the side.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have husband and wife working together. You have love-hate relationship.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, that brings me to the question that I had for you guys. You were a married couple. How long have you guys been married for, by the way?
7 years.
7 years. Okay, wow. 7 years. Should be
Oh, remember
surprised.
the
Huh?
number? I don't remember off the
Can
Because
you
top.
remember?
the last time I got it at 6 and then we made a mistake.
Yeah,
We
we made a
forgot.
mistake.
So you've been married for 7 years,
Yeah.
and how long have you been business partners?
Well, since 2000, no, technically not business partners until Feb 2019.
Yeah.
19, so about
2019 Feb was when she moved away from her corporate job and then
yeah,
joined full time on
yeah.
Happy Days.
So how was that transition like? Because working with somebody who you're married to, these are very close relationships. Being a business partner with somebody and then marriage. But then these are very relationships that are very different in different contexts. I mean, like, you get my question. How do you make it work? What works for you? Are you still figuring it out? I'd be curious to hear your perspective.
I think yeah, I'll go first. I think we're still trying to figure it out. There's a lot that the business demands from you as an individual, and being a married couple, it's kind of hard to differentiate work and then personal life because you kind of take work along with you in your head. You're constantly
Yeah,
thinking about the business, and even when you're trying to de-stress, you're just thinking about the business, and then the stress comes on. So there is no chill time, but it's fun in the sense for me because you are thinking about your baby. The business is your baby, and you're trying to grow it, you're trying to nurture it and shape it in a good way. So as long as you have that understanding with the partner that the business and personal life, they tend to merge together. You can't always say you have to keep it separate. It will not happen, because ideas come about anytime. You could be sitting during dinner and then you're thinking, an idea just pops and then you want to discuss it. You can't just be like, okay, we'll discuss it tomorrow in the conference room. No, it has to be discussed. So that's my 2 cents on that, but we're still trying to figure it out. The business is growing. There's more challenges that we are faced with, and that's how we have to grow, and we have to learn about working together every day.
wow. Sylvie, what do you have to say?
First of all, I'm very impressed with your answer. Very nice. I would not have thought about all those
The
factors.
wife has approved. The wife has
Brownie,
approved.
brownie
Brownie
points.
points.
No, I think it's really, I think it's been a really interesting experience because you never actually know how your partner is in the office. And it's always this assumption in your head, when you're married to someone, you have no idea what their working style is like. So even with your parents, in fact, it's interesting is you never know what they were like with their colleagues and their juniors. But for us working together, I think it's been adventurous. It's been interesting because we've learned a lot of things about each other work-wise, which we didn't know. Like Vikram said, I think it's difficult to manage the personal and professional space, and I think the easiest way to do that is to not assume that you're going to have that space, like he said. So you allow it to merge instead of struggling against it all the time, because that probably causes more friction. Just to add to the fun of it, we also have a little baby.
Yeah.
So, the timing of that was just like, I quit my job and I was already pregnant. So we were like, let's do this. Who's gonna wonder about it 10 years down the line? But I think it's it takes a lot of understanding between a couple to figure out how to manage family and work. And I think one of the key things that keeps us sane is that we have very different focuses. So he looks after one part of the business where he is the deciding party, and I am only ideas party, and he takes the call. And then I have my side of the business where it's exactly the opposite. And we try not to interfere there because that's where it starts to get messy.
Wow, I personally think that's the key. Being part of a family business, that role clarity is so important in the business. This part. We'll be able to give each other suggestions, but then you're responsible for this, and your decision is the final decision. I think it's pretty awesome that you guys have that setup, because it does take that clarity to keep things clear at home. If you have that clarity in business, the responsibilities are divided. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Also, to add to that, I think as you keep growing and your team grows, so right now we have 7 people, there will be a time when we'll have 50, 60 people, and then at that time, you know you will be so apart. So you need to be able to manage your side of the business superbly well,
Yeah.
and right from the get go you want to try doing that, so that later on also you're not dependent on the other person to get things done, and each person comes with their own plus points, so that needs to be highlighted.
For sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Happy Jars is an e-commerce business. That's how you launched it, and that's a big part of your business, right? E-commerce selling, and that's relatively a new model in India, right? Creating your own brand, own website, and then selling it through e-commerce. What's your comments on e-commerce, the future of e-commerce, and your experience of e-commerce in India, having an e-commerce business in India?
I think so. Okay, so the marketing side of it, or rather the consumer side of it, is right now is a particularly exciting time, because I think so. When we started, we thought about being digital first. We were digital first when we began, and then we realized after about a year and a half, in fact, when we moved to Delhi and when I was starting to join the business, that there was a huge potential in actually being in physical retail stores, which e-commerce was not able to tap. So we launched in a couple of retail stores in Delhi, and that actually was a big chunk of the reason for why we changed our packaging, and the brand got completely revamped because we wanted to be on a shelf, and it's a very different kind of presence that you need, which was great for us because it put us in a different league, I think, online as well as in retail. And then retail actually became a very big part of the business at that time. What we realized was that while that's a very exciting area, because people, it's a habit product, right? So peanut butter is like buying a toothpaste, buying a bread, milk, eggs. You want to buy all those things together. So it's a bit of a tough challenge to get a customer to think, I want peanut butter, I want this peanut butter, and then buy that from a website separately to where you're buying bread, milk, and eggs. But for us, what happened with COVID especially is that the entire move towards e-grocery and e-commerce players for food has now shifted the game back to being digital heavy. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I'm actually really glad that we were digital focused in the beginning, because that's what every brand today has been struggling to do. For the last 2-3 months, the brands in any brand you think about, big or small, that didn't have their own website is now finding the time and the effort and the resources that they need to put together their own website, down to the small. I mean, ironically, we were talking about how my parents have just ordered Narayani, like Vico Narayani, on Vico Narayani's website, which I would never have thought of doing, except that they're out of stock everywhere. So I think e-commerce first is a good strategy to have all in all, but right now it's critical. You can't function without having it.
And there's a lot of, to add to Surabhi's point, there's a lot of sort of parts to e-commerce, right? There is logistics, there is customer service, which all comes together, and you need to be very sharp on that front, because that's what kind of differentiates you from the other brands, and that's what we felt. Product is good, but a consumer needs to receive it on time. He or she needs to be happy after purchasing it, and there's a lot of service that goes after you purchase. So right from the get go, when we started, we had a website asset, and then we kept trying to list onto other platforms. Like Qtro was one of the platforms which helped us ship outside of our city, right? We didn't have that functionality on our website, but then we needed to get to that, and then we were just gunning to make sure we are able to deliver pan India. So this is what gave us an advantage right from the beginning, and then as you keep spreading your roots across other e-com platforms, it just gets better.
That's amazing. What drives you guys in the morning to wake up and decide to go to work and make Happy Jars bigger? What drives you? Why do you have this drive? I see this drive in the both of you. To make it bigger. Why? What's that why for you?
I think both of us have different whys, so I'll just let Surabhi. I want to hear what Surabhi has to say. Why does she get up and then get into the office?
Why? It's a very weird and personal reason. I think for me, I've always been an overachiever, and even in office, I've always been the kind of person who's like, ah, now I've done this, now I want to do something more, and I've kind of felt this feeling, this niggling feeling that I would be able to make something big happen. And I just felt like this was the opportunity. I mean, the idea clicked, the name clicked. When he started selling, the product clicked. There's something that we've done right every step of the way, which is kind of just reinforced that we make good decisions. And I think you can't ever tell whether something's going to be successful or not. But all you can tell each other and yourselves is every day, every decision that you make, was it the right one or the wrong one? And I think we've made good decisions so far. And I think what gets me up out of bed every morning is just seeing how far this goes, because we set ourselves stretch targets, and we've reached those stretch targets. And then I feel like we want to set more stretch targets. And I think when you have something good, you don't want to stop until, you have to. So yeah, for me, it's very exciting to build something of our own, and to go from zero to where we are now is huge. I mean, we work in big MNCs, and it's not the same thrill as sitting in a big office and, having company paid trips and all of that. But it's a huge thrill to have built something from nothing. So very excited about that.
Yeah. I think adding to
you can't add. You have to have your own voice this time.
I have to add because I feel like that too. But her experience in the corporate life has been very different to mine. So I thoroughly enjoy the journey part of it. Right from when we were making. I mean, to date, I can still go into the factory and then make a batch from start to finish. And I do that regularly because we need to be good on the quality. So that is a good test for me also to understand where things are going wrong or things can be improved further. So the recipe gets better, and the ingredients have to be getting better as we go. And ingredients are such a thing that they keep changing. So you have to keep testing. You have to make sure that you're able to deliver that consistent taste across. But see that right there, the process is what gets me going. That's what I keep looking at every day, and making things better, making the manufacturing line better, making the consumer journey better, and then making sure that every customer that we touch is happy. So Naren, for you also, when you were exposed to Happy Jars, you would have had a good experience, dealing with the product. And then also when you had a query on Instagram, or you wanted to talk to someone from the company, you got that attention, from our staff or from me or Surabhi. So that's the exciting part for me, and that's something which I want to retain as we grow bigger. Because if you have an issue with Happy Jars, you should be able to talk to someone senior to be able to take that decision quickly, and move on from that bad experience or anything of that sort.
I can attest to that. I mean, I DM'd you guys on Instagram, appreciating the product, and then I got a response back, and that's how we actually got in touch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so both of you have been in the glamorous corporate world where you fancy big offices, and you walk in and the air conditioner is going, everybody's suited up, whatever, all that jazz. What's more fulfilling? I mean, over there you have a lot of perks, fixed monthly salary, everything's good. But over here you have a lot of struggle, man. You really got to sweat it out, when you're starting a company, building it from scratch. What's more fulfilling, and what was your experience of being part of the corporate world?
I think so. For me, the corporate world was it was a very different kind of excitement. It was about being able to bring value to something that was already kind of there, but you add value and it becomes amazing. In a startup, you are literally like the janitor. I'm planning to paint the windows because I feel like painting the windows. but it's a very different. So I think fulfilling wise, I would definitely say startup, but it is the hardest year and a half or whatever it's been of my entire life. This last year and a half, like I never thought coming from corporate, especially because I thought, I can do this and I've done pretty well and I'm sure I'll do well in a startup and we'll build something big. It is so difficult to build from scratch. You take for granted the fact that someone will be there to wash your plate after lunch. I know it sounds really like, I don't know if it's the wrong word, but elitist. If you're sitting in an office where there's things like when there's no toilet paper in the bathroom.
You get served chai.
Yeah, you get served chai, exactly. It's a very, there's no corporate, there's no processes, we make the bills ourselves. When we started, we would do, everything. Like you'd call the vendor from the smallest to the largest. If you needed something from the market, as simple as a dustbin for the office, you'd go and buy the dustbin yourself. So it's very grounding as an experience to work in your own business, and you appreciate what a corporate goes through when they are in their big offices. You appreciate what a founder would have gone through of that business to get into that size. And I think for me, it's been very humbling to know that, I've worked in a big corporate and I've done well there. And now to come and build something here is a great testament, but it's also like we know where we want our sites to be, in the sense we know when we would have hit that big level of success. But along the way, it's just, there's a lot of adjustments that you have to make. Let's put it like that. So it's different, but it's definitely more fulfilling to know you got. So if you finally manage to make the salary you made at a job yourself, that's a great thing.
Correct.
Salary is a big part, but for me, I've pretty much worked a lot with startups. I've joined, when I was doing internships also, it was with startups. When I got a permanent role, it was with a startup. So I've always kind of been in an environment which is, everyone is dependent on everyone. You're not specialized or you're not a specialist in a startup. You kind of have to wear different hats, and whatever the work demands, you got to get in and then do it. So for me, it was a very natural fit into having a startup or having a business of my own. But the difference is everything. The ownership, responsibility is yours. So if the jars don't arrive, the ownership is on you. There is no second person. You are held accountable, and you need to make sure that it happens, right? So that sense of responsibility I felt in your own startup. You are the end all. You can make it happen or you cannot make it happen, so it's on you. I feel that's the difference. But I think I've worked in two big corporates, and what I felt was I was very small in the whole small part of that equation. So if I was able to do my bit properly, and that seemed very easy, if I'm able to do well at what tasks I was given, I think that's good for the corporate. That's a very easy stage.
Yeah, it's a very easy life to be in a corporate.
Yeah. And you can you do your job and then you forget about it once you're back home.
Yeah.
But with your own startup, or even if you are in another startup, the job will not leave you, because the startup demands that. The starting needs to be aggressive and constant. Then towards the end you can relax.
Hopefully someday.
Hopefully, yeah. It's like life. You want to basically struggle in the beginning, so that by the time you're retiring, you don't really need to do much.
I love those answers. Thanks so much for the honesty. What would you say to somebody who has a job, a very safe, secure job right now, watching this and is thinking about starting their own company? What are some tips that you would give to them? Keep these things in mind. What are any things that you would like to say? Anything that you would like to say to them?
Okay. So, I mean, what I've learned, I can tell you, the mistakes that we've made I can tell you on
Don't
that
tell them
front,
all the
not
mistakes.
all the mistakes, but I can tell you that when you're starting up, when we started our business, we didn't have a lot of things in place in terms of the financials, but thanks to Surabhi, we were able to get those in place, the unit economics, the sense, you need to be profitable. It's just not about burning through money, because being a bootstrap company, we don't have a lot of resources. So every rupee that is spent needs to get something in return, or needs to create value for the consumer, for the product, anything. So we needed to be sensible, and we've done that from the get-go. And thanks to Surabhi being part of the business, it's really helped us in that front.
I think also in terms of tips to guys who are starting out, I mean, like Vikram said, profitability is not, see, it's not about an investor at the end of the day. And I think that's something that we started with as a couple. We didn't want to build this because we want to make it huge and sell it off. The idea was for us to have a good foundation as a business. And I think it's like a lot of these good articles that, give you tips for entrepreneurship will tell you learn from a thela wala. But actually, if you think about it, you do need to spend as much as you have. You can't spend more than that. And I think that's important when you're starting out, especially now, because you will be surprised at the psychological effect that the lack of a salary has on you. So when you see your bank account dipping every single month instead of going up, it's very different from having a salary that comes in and spending all of it. No. That's very different. You can get, a lakh a month and spend all of it without a problem and still be like, chalo, it will come back in 3 days. But when you don't have anything coming in and you're eating into that, it plays games with your mind. So you need to be really, really strong on the maths, actually, and then psychologically be committed to making it work, because it does take time. And I think right now, my advice to anybody would always be, don't jump in until you can afford to jump in the sense that, I held on to a job for like 2 years while he was working on the business, just because we wanted to be sure that somewhere there's at least a customer who's willing to pay. Then after that, you will struggle to find enough customers to make it a big business, but at least there needs to be an idea there. So I think experiment on the side, do it while you're doing your job, work nights if you have to, but have something real before you decide to quit what you have and then go. Especially in today's market, it's really hard. Like it's difficult right now with COVID.
I love that. That's very practical, to be honest. And you guys are really sharing your journey. What I loved about it was that how you spoke about, just don't jump into it. You could hustle hard. You could do this and that at the same time, and put in that sweat hours, so that in the end you can afford to make that switch completely. And that's a very practical tip. I don't know if you guys listen to Gary Vee. He says the same thing. He says the same thing. Yeah.
He
But
says like it is, and I think that's the only way to do it, right? You can't sugarcoat this. I mean, eventually you may get an investor, but you might not. So
another thing that I love, that what you said is kind of contrary to what the common notion of a startup is in today's day and age, where it's like, just make something up, and a lot of the times we know something is just a bubble, it's gonna burst, because they don't focus on profitability and the hardcores of the business. It's just a valuation game. And I really loved how your answer was just what's true to you. That we're not going for just like trying to build a value and sell it off. It's a true business that we want to make profitable, and we want to cater to. And I guess that's why your product speaks for itself. Because that's why you generally care about the product and delivering good value. So that was awesome. Vikram, Surabhi, thank you so much. Are there any questions that you have for me, or any final comments?
I have one question from stand of, you've had our products, right? We would love to know what you think might be some exciting categories or products that you would like to see from us as Happy Jar. Because you've gone through the journey of getting fitter, thinking about your health in a different angle, looking at nutrition and all that. So we are very much focused on consumers who are thinking on those lines. So we'd love to know what you think.
I was this might be one off, but I was wondering, I would love like a real hazelnut, because Nutella is a very popular brand and they have hazelnut, that flavoring that's pretty good. But
Yeah.
a lot of the hazelnut butter, I think that would be amazing with dark chocolate without added sugar.
Yeah.
For healthy consumers, I think that could be a great product that I could see potential for. But again, it is a niche. It's not as commonly consumed as peanut butter, but I think a hazelnut butter with dark chocolate without added sugar, that might be a very cool product.
Oh
Nice.
wow. Yeah.
Have you tried the dark chocolates? You have tried the dark chocolate.
Yes,
Mhm.
I tried the peanut butter dark chocolate. That was awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, the hazelnut does have a very distinctive taste to it. The roasted hazelnut is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Wow.
super, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show,
Thank you
Vikram,
Thank
for
you,
having
Naren.
us.
and yeah, thank you, happy people. It was really happy to have you on the podcast.